Hey, Binspa University, Brendan here, and today we're going over pricing and pricing strategy. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what should I price my services at? What should I price my time at? We're going to get into that today a little bit, specifically, of course, in regards to bin cleaning. We're going to look at how to manipulate prices, how customers are affected by prices, a little bit of economics, a little bit of math. We got to understand our own internal dynamics, external dynamics, and then some strategies we can incorporate into our pricing. So going right into that, we have an overview. This is what a supply and demand curve is. We're going to get into that. But first, let's talk about strategies. So if you just Google pricing strategies, if you read some books on pricing strategies, you're going to see all these and more. These are kind of the 18 big ones that I've always heard. The ones that are underlined are the ones we're going to focus on. The rest either aren't relevant to our industry or I don't think are very strong. We shouldn't be using them. But by all means, go in your free time, go look these up, do some more research. And if you find a way that you can incorporate other types of pricing into your structure, then that's a win for you. Come back and share it with the group, share it with the university. Value-based pricing, and number two, that's where this all comes down to. We want to create more value than the price we charge customers. We're going to get more into this in marketing. It comes down to value and value perception in regards to and versus the price we charge. So if you charge something that's worth X amount of dollars and your price is less, then that's a way to close a sale and get the customer to choose to go with you. Competition-based pricing, that's just understanding your competition and pricing based on what they're going for, right? We just want to create more value and have the value ratio be better than our competitors. Penetration pricing is a tool you can use. That's just coming into a market, especially if you're new or if you're not the biggest player right now. That means you kind of go a little lower, knowing you probably could charge more, but you want to penetrate the market, grow a little faster. It's usually a short-term solution, short-term strategy, but you can use that to start off. Psychological pricing, we're going to talk about that. It's going to how we target customers to get to what services we want, especially the recurring services that provide the most value to us, which goes into 11, subscription pricing. Right, this is a recurring business model, so we want to price our services in a way that incentivizes for that recurring model to work. Promotional pricing, pretty straightforward. You run promotions, you do different things, and that's going to allow you to try to promote either a certain service or just your business in general. And then lastly is economies of scale pricing. This is going to be used more for the bulk cleanings, for your commercial work. Basically, if you're able to do jobs in bulk, we're going to price it accordingly. You want to be competitive. You want to create tremendous value. For us, that's commercial bulk haulers, trash haulers. We even do like some downtown restaurants that all have bins next to each other. We give them a great deal since we do them all in volume. We're not spending time, labor, gas. We're already there, so we can use economies of scale to our advantage and price accordingly. So first and foremost, apologize if my face is cutting some of these words off, but we want to understand both ourselves internally and our market externally. So I'm not going to go into this too much. This is going to be another subject altogether, talking about expenses, but you got to understand your costs. Your variable costs are going to be labor, at least if it's an hourly employee. Gas is going to be your biggest one, and then water usually shouldn't be too bad. Then your fixed costs are your rent or storage, your equipment payments. If you're getting a truck financed, whatever you're paying all your equipment, your labor, especially if it's a salary position, insurance. There's plenty of other examples, but we're not going to go into this too much. Just you have to understand your own internal prices, your own internal costs, because your price needs to cover this at the very minimum, right? And then understanding your market, the external dynamics. Look at competitors. Are you blue ocean or do you have competitors? What are their prices? More importantly, what's their value? Are you creating more value than them? Are their policies different than yours? Are they leaving it at the street? Are you bringing the bins back and creating more value? Is their brand strong? Are their reviews strong? What kind of results can they get? Are they using like a little pressure washing wand, low PSI, and dumping the dirty water in the customer's front yard? Low value, right? So understanding their value, and then you have to price where that your price compared to your value is better deal than their price compared to their value. Now you could use predatory pricing regardless of your value. You can try to undercut them. I put an asterisk there. It's similar to that penetration strategy. We don't want to use that typically, but it's a good way to get your foot in the door if that's something that you're interested in. Do some more research on. Usually don't advocate it for it myself. After your competition, look at your market, look at your target market. So what's your TAM, your total addressable market? I didn't write it down here, but look at your target audience. What's their demographic, their geographics? Describe your perfect customer or who are you going after. For us, we love like 40-year-old soccer moms who live in HOAs as like an example. So that's someone we try to target. And then you look at that medium income. This is going to affect your pricing tremendously. I'm in 2, 3 counties right now, and they have very different income statuses. My county that I live in is probably half the average medium income as a county south of me, and we're probably double the average of the county north of me. So that affects my pricing. I've made a bunch of mistakes. I came in, I was priced too low. I did a price increase. I had a merger and acquisition with a company that was priced higher. Then I had prices based on where you lived, and I consolidated it. Then in my third acquisition, I had higher prices. I decided just to bring back down, give them a little discount, try to keep the churn rate down. Right? There's no right answer, but based on geography is how you're going to be able to price. The more affluent the area, the more you can charge. That's just a fact, especially if you're doing it yourself or if your competitors are understanding the same thing. That being said, going on Google and typing medium income of this county or my town or this area, probably not a great way to go. Just like we talked about in some of our other classrooms, we're not targeting the average person. We're targeting probably the top 10% in terms of income, probably maybe even the top 1%, right? I think a good number for a good market is 0.1% you want to have of people that are eligible to use your services. So if we're only using 0.1% of people, then we're targeting the top 1 or top 10%. So that's probably a better way to look at it. Maybe even target neighborhoods. If you have a neighborhood, 5 neighborhoods you really want, look at the average income in those neighborhoods, because that's going to affect the pricing more than putting in the averages of all the people you're not even looking at. Okay. So that being said, some best practices as we finish up kind of this overview. Got a price to cover your overhead, cover your expenses. That's kind of the most important. The whole purpose of business is to create a profit. So your revenue has to exceed your expenses. 2, have the best value, right? Regardless of prices, even just have the best value of your competitors. That way you then can charge a premium. Your value is going to be there by the equipment, the knowledge, the tools, the branding. So create the best value. 3rd, price for your market. I'm going to tell you my prices. I'm going to show you some examples, but I'm not going to tell you the prices you should use for your market. I'm not going to say, hey, you should charge 25 for this, 35 for this, 70 for this. The answer is it depends, like I said, on your internal and external dynamics and your market. So if you have a question, I'm always happy to take some questions and answers in my email. We can go over what your market looks like, but price for your market. And then don't clutter your site. One of the things that we talk about a lot is you can get an analysis paralysis as a customer. I read a case study. It was about a beer garden, and they found that with more beers on tap, they had struggle getting more beer sold. People didn't know what to do. So what we don't want to do is clutter websites with a ton of different service offerings, service frequencies, right? I like to go with monthly, quarterly, one time. The business that I acquired, they like to do quarterly, biannual, one time. I can go on a rant. I won't right now, but basically, I don't like that biannual. People just seem to forget about it and drop off of it. But I also offer biannual services, and I also offer bi-monthly services. I just don't advertise that on the website. I don't want to overwhelm the customer with too many choices, and then they don't pick anything. I'll do a promotion. I'll talk on social media to customers that want to switch, offer them to switch. If a customer seems like monthly is a little too much, I'll be quick to offer them that every other month or quarterly. So I just don't want to clutter my site. You can have as many options as you want. Just be careful how you propose that to the customer. Okay. So now we're going to go right into strategic pricing, how to manipulate your prices to get the customers to choose what you want to do. 1, just to sign up, obviously is the most important. But then 2, we want to make sure that they're going to the recurring services that you want. So let's go into the decoy effect. The decoy effect. I love the decoy effect. Walmart's a great example that uses a decoy effect a lot. And I'll use TVs because it's one of the things that they use pricing for with the decoy effect. What they'll do is they'll have 3 options for you. They could have more, but in this example, we're going with 3. What they try to do is all 3 are priced in a way that they will create value for Walmart or the company. Right? We don't want a customer to choose a decoy option and then we lose out. No, it still has to work for us. But what we want to do is we want to overprice them compared to their value, more so than the target option, which we want to price the best for the value. So in this example, maybe option A is kind of priced pretty high, but they're very small TV, as you can see. Option C is priced extremely high as a big TV, but option B is only slightly more than option A in terms of price, but it's right there in option C. It looks only almost identical in size, maybe just a slightly bit smaller. So customers will walk up and say, well, I can get option B only a little bit more than option A, but and it's only a little bit worse than option C in terms of size, I want option B, right? So that way we target option B. For us, let's go into monthly, quarterly, or one-time services. Let's say option A is monthly, option B is quarterly, and option C is our one-time. For me, I want the quarterly to be the target because it's the best margin for me, and I'm almost at capacity. As we reach capacity, right, we want to get more of those quarterly because I don't have room. I want to fill up those extra slots with the most margin I can. Now you're saying, well, why not one times? Isn't the most margin? Sure, but it's really a decoy. That's not going to build a business. We can't rely on one-time cleaning. So let's go quarterly is my target. If you're starting up, if you're new, if you have a lot of capacity, if you just got another truck and that truck has a lot of capacity, right? Maybe your target is monthly. And we want to use the decoys of the other ones to get people to target the monthly service offering. So for this example, right, I'm going to charge monthly is going to be a good price. Quarterly is going to be a really good deal, probably only a little bit more than monthly. And then option C, that one time is going to be almost twice as much. So you come on, you're like, wow, I can get, 4 times of cleanings for half the price. Let me go with that quarterly. So that's kind of how we use a decoy effect to get them to pick the one you want. If it's monthly, maybe you make, one time's even higher, and quarterly is even higher, and option A is just the best price for the value. Or you add little things to create more value. Say, hey, monthly service comes with, we bring the bins to your, up to your garage, but the other services you don't. There's other ways besides price that you can create more value. That way you can use a decoy effect to bring people to the service that you want. That brings us to promotions, right? Promotions is straightforward. Use sales to try to push people to which prices you want. Lower prices, give incentives, 10% off, 10% off for life, 25% off first cleaning. I try not to do this with the decoys, especially the one-time services, but I'll use promotions for like quarterly services a lot, or even to get a customer to go from monthly to quarterly. All right, so that brings us right into the economics. We'll kind of take a deep dive, use some examples. So we're going to use math to manipulate service selection. All right, so here's just a quick example. Let's say your company, you offer monthly, quarterly, and one-time cleanings. Say these are actually the prices I started off in this industry. Let's say your monthly price was $20, your quarterly price was $30, your one-time price was $50. Now let's say after however many months in business, you have 200 monthly customers, you have 150 quarterly, and you have 40 that use your service as a one-time. Right? This is just very basic level. This isn't going into any type of promotions or churn rate. Just very simple. Let's just use this math, kind of create a point here. So using that math, we can get into a little more detail here. So right, the top 2 rows are the same, and that brings us to yearly income. You take the $20 a month times your 300 customers times 12, right? Because there's 12 months in a year, and then that brings you to $72,000 in revenue that you get from your monthlies. You do the same thing for quarterly, but instead, obviously, you multiply by 4 since there's 4 services in a year, get $18,000, and then you brought in about $1,250 from your one-time cleanings. That's revenue, not profit. But we can use those numbers to understand our other numbers better, right? It shows us our income percentage. It means we're getting like 79% of our revenue we're bringing from our monthly customers, maybe only 20% from quarterly, and a percent from those one times, which is nothing. And then we show how many customers we have. So we have a lot of customers are monthly, a good amount are quarterly, and very few are one-time customers. What this shows, we're not going to put this into any fancy equations. In fact, this is bare minimum data, so you can't even create a good demand curve from it. Instead, it just kind of gives us some numbers that we should use as business owners and managers to determine what we need to do. You should use this in conjunction with plenty of other topics we're going to talk about: capacity, cost of customer acquisition. What this is telling me, kind of, as a quick example, is, man, we're taking a lot of our income from monthly customers, but I know our quarterly is 50% more, more for our price. Meaning, if it's the same area, same neighborhood, that's $10 just a profit, right? We're technically covering our overhead with our monthly for that trip. I want to start converting some of that income percentage to quarterly. I want to get. So what does that mean? That means we want to bring monthly customers quarterly, or we want to make new customers go choose quarterly instead of monthly. Super simple, right? That means we need to increase monthly, decrease quarterly, or we increase both, but proportionally we increase quarterly less than we increase monthly. We should never decrease prices. That's dumb. I should say never. Never say never. There probably is a good example, but in general, we probably should not ever decrease. So that means if you want to get more quarterly customers, if you want to push this using this kind of small data, that means, hey, I would probably either just increase monthly, or say if I wanted to increase monthly $5 or 20%, then I'm only going to increase quarterly by $3 or 10% at the same time. That just kind of pushes that ratio, showing very little. We're going to get into the demand curve right next, showing like, hey, got more monthly than quarterly, and I want to switch that. Right? If you're super under capacity, maybe it's the opposite. So going right into supply demand, we got the law of demand. Very simple. This is we'll talk about supply as well, but in our industry, as a service industry, right, we don't need to talk about supply. That gets more into capacity. We're going to talk more about demand. That's more important for us as business owners making decisions on prices right now. So if you don't hear me talk about supply, we could talk about that offline. Law of demand, simple. There's an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and the price, right? Kind of simple economics 101. The reason for this, there's three reasons. There's the substitution effect, right? As there's substitutions, then your quantity demand is going to go down. In our case, the substitution effect, we'll talk about in a second, is what other things can you do? You can just take your bin and clean it yourself. You can put it in your backyard. I know it's inconvenient instead of your garage for an HOA owner, but they can do it. Right? At some point, as price increases, they're going to demand the convenience of it less and less. Income effect, pretty simple, straightforward. More disposable income, more quantity can be demanded. Vice versa, if there's less income, then there's going to be less quantity demanded. And then the law of diminishing margin utility. That it's maybe not as applicable to us, but think of it like this. If you were to get your trash bin cleaned every single day, it's probably not that much value to you, right? The marginal utility is probably pretty low. Where if you're on quarterly and for 12 weeks or 3 months, your bin's getting nasty and stinky every day, and then finally the bin spa is coming or your trash bin cleaning company's coming, really good marginal utility in that service. So quantity demanded could also be looked at instead of at a macro level, how many customers demand it, how much quantity a single customer demands as well. So your one customer, their monthly, they're not getting as much value as the quarterly because there's more marginal utility the more you space it out, right? Once every day, no value. Once a year, that once a year is going to make a big difference to them. So we try to have to balance that as well. That being said, forgive my crude drawing here, but the shifters of demand is what we really should focus on here. So preferences is pretty good for our industry, especially. Preferences is how much you prefer the service, how much you prefer the product, and things can affect preferences. For us, very specifically, it's seasonal. In the summertime, especially here in Texas where I'm located, 100 degrees in the summer, the bins get super stinky. You're out there fishing, you're out there putting stuff in your bins. Man, your preferences in the summertime skyrocket. So the demand curve shifts to the right. Remember, the price isn't changing. The demand shifts to the right. Now, in the wintertime, the bins don't stink. They don't smell. No one really cares. Preference, decreases. The demand decreases. It shifts to the left. That's talking about preferences. Number of buyers is pretty straightforward. The more buyers, the better, right? If you see a community pop up, an HOA community, a new development, you should be happy. More bins, more households, more demand. Price of related goods. For us, we could look at both substitutes and complements. A substitute is what we kind of just mentioned in the last slide. What else could you do if you have a dirty bin? Number one is just nothing. You have a dirty bin. Probably what most people already have done for years and will continue to do is they just don't worry about it. Another substitute is you clean it yourself. Put water, cut a garden hose, right? We can talk about value, probably less value in that. The reason we're in business is because we provide more value, but that's a substitute. At a certain price point, people will choose to do that instead. You can look at this at a macro versus micro level. We could also talk about, related goods being your competition because they are related goods. But we're not going to go into that too much right now. We're going to just talk about this at a macro level. The related goods is basically do nothing or do it yourself. Complements won't affect our business, our industry as much. Income, once again, straightforward. More income, demand shifts to the right. Less income, demand shifts to the left. Then expectations. This isn't expectations about how good your service is. This is market expectations about what's going to happen. So if the market thinks that trash bin cleaning is going to go up, then people might start buying more of it now, or vice versa. For us, probably doesn't affect. If anything, it's more of a scare. I remember last election cycle, I lost a bunch of customers. After Biden was elected, they were scared that the economy was going to tank, so they canceled their service ahead of time. This isn't about to get political. People will be crazy no matter what. But if their expectation about the economy is bad or the economy is doing bad, then their demand might shift based on the economy as well. Okay, here's an example. This is not perfect, but the monthly service demand curve and the quarterly service, they'll be slightly different. This is just showing that, right, if I were to offer my services at the same price really high, people probably won't choose monthly. They'll probably choose quarterly. That's why it's on top on the left side. Excuse me, right at like 50 bucks, say. People are going to be like, oh, that's too much to spend 50 bucks a month. But I guess every 3 months that makes sense. Quarterly service, yeah, 50 bucks every 3 months, I can do that. So there's going to be more quantity demanded at the higher price for quarterly. Now, if I were to say, hey, my services are $1, people are like, oh, great, I want monthly. Give me monthly services. $1, yeah, come every week, come every day. The quantity demanded would be super, super high. So that means at some point, as you see on the graph in the middle, there's going to be some price where a customer kind of has to think to themselves, like, wow, it is equally valuable at this price for me to have them come out monthly or quarterly. Now, we shouldn't be pricing that way because then your prices are the same. But depending on what you're looking for, it's just good to understand that number where customers are feel the same way about both services. Okay, brings us into our last conversation about economics. Try not to get too math heavy in this, but elasticity is pretty simple. It's the percent change in quantity demanded over the percent change in price. So we talk about the different types of elasticity, different markets. We have elastic markets. Elastic markets mean that when price changes, the quantity demanded is greatly affected. Think like luxury items, like cereal is a great example, right? If you're in a supermarket and you see cereal and the price increases, you have so many other products, substitutes, complements that you're just not going to go with that cereal. You're going to go with the instead of frosted flakes, you're going to go with frosted oats instead. So the price really affects how much demanded. Inelastic, a great example is like gas. When the price decreases slightly, you're not like rushing to the gas station to go fill up your tank. And if the price increases a little, you still have to go to work. You're not going to not go to the gas station and get gas. So really, that's why you never see a gas station sale on gas. It's a very inelastic. Unit elastic means the codependent coefficient is one. It's equal. Perfectly elastic, right? As the quantity demanded changes, the price won't change. And then perfectly inelastic means that the price will go up and down. The quantity demanded is always going to be the same, no matter how much you charge, how much the price is. So for us, and I'm going to go into an example here, we would think that we're pretty elastic, right? We're a luxury service. You think like it would affect, but the answer is there's plenty of things that will change how customer views your industry, your company, how elastic your market is. And this is not to say that this industry is elastic or inelastic. Really, you can change elasticity on a micro level at your own county, in your own market, in your own area. So the question is, how elastic is this service, is this industry? And the answer is it depends, right? The typical consultant answer. On paper, in theory, it should be very elastic, right? It's a luxury service. However, it's an affluent market. It's an affluent, people want this service. And there's a lot of brand loyalty. There's a lot of other factors coming into play, probably high barriers to entry for competition, at least serious competition with the right equipment. So that stuff may decrease elasticity. I'll use myself as a little case study. So first, for promotions, maybe you want to come to me if you guys got any great promotions that have worked. Let me know. My promotions never yield crazy results. In fact, I usually get almost the same quantity demanded. I just have to give them a discount. Whereas if I didn't do the promotion, I get the same big increase in quantity demanded just by doing a better job with my networking and sales. So by decreasing prices, I'm not increasing quantity demanded, which is the opposite of what we would expect. Another great example is last March, I decided to increase my monthly prices by 25%. I also increased my quarterly by like 30%, my one times by like 11%. But let's just go on a monthly for a second here because we can use some easy numbers. So I increased my monthly price from $20 to $25, which is a 25% increase. And then after 3 months, I was comfortable with my numbers. I kept 96% of my customers, which was crazy to me. I thought, hey, if I increase prices by 25%, as long as I don't lose more than 20, I'm going to be good. And I kept 96%. So let's look at the demand coefficient here. The percent change in quantity demanded was only 4% versus the percent change in price was 25%, meaning our demand coefficient was, or my demand coefficient was 0.16, which is extremely inelastic. Kind of went against everything that I expected for this market. Kind of goes against what typically industry standards. Now, what's the reason for this? Well, there's other factors at play as well. I just wanted to mention this because I don't want people thinking that this is a super inelastic or elastic market. It depends. My company, we built a lot of brand power, a lot of customer loyalty, so they like that. They wanted to stay with us. We provide tremendous value for them. We were also probably priced too low, so we had so much value that they knew they were getting undercharged, and I think most people kind of expected it. Competition. I have a few competitors, but nothing that really would worry me to increase my prices. In fact, I had the most value and I was the lowest, so definitely time to raise my prices. And then it came down to implementation, which I'll talk about this in a customer retention or in another classroom session as well. But it really came down to how was I going to tell my customers I'm increasing prices. I believed in transparency in terms of the price itself, in terms of why I was doing it. I used AI to help me write my email, make sure it was worded very nice, very correctly. So the implementation was super important, and how often I did it. It was the only time I did it. It was 2 or 3 years before we did our first major price increase. So customers weren't used to like me telling them we're going to increase prices all the time. I even tried to keep like a little discount as like a grandfathered in discount to kind of keep them happy. So little things, little tactics of implementation help me keep that churn rate low, keep them on. So probably is more elastic than I give off with these numbers, but I made it a little less elastic by having great brand loyalty, all these other good things, good implementation on changing. Now, if you do this all the time, if you're constantly changing prices, yeah, you're kind of losing all this. Customers are going to start being more demanding of the value, and they'll leave accordingly. But right, do what you need to do. If you need to increase prices, it's a strategic decision. Just remember, I try to tell people you shouldn't change them more than, at least for existing customers, more than once every 2 or 3 years. Now, if you want to increase your website for new customers, and you don't mention to your current customers because you're not changing their prices, and that's one thing. But yeah, I definitely think that trying to keep the prices as steady as possible for long periods of time is going to help you in the long run, and then you can make bigger price increases when you do make them. So, thank you guys so much for watching this presentation on pricing. I'm going to have a forum here as well. And as always, I'm here to help coach, answer questions, answer DMs, answer emails. If you got a question about your market, if you got a question about your pricing, if you're trying to push people to a new service or even add additional service offerings, additional service frequencies, reach out to me. We'll talk. I'd love to see how we can use strategic pricing to get your business to where it needs to be. Thanks so much.